Hello and welcome to the Extension Network. I'm Terry Carter with the University of Georgia's Cobb County Cooperative Extension Family and Consumer Science Department. We have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about make-ahead meals and meal prep. I'm sure you've heard about it by now. It's a very, very hot trending topic. But exactly what is make-ahead meal and meal prep? Well, let's talk about that. Make-ahead meals is simply as the name says. It's making your meals ahead of time. Now, there are several ways to do this. You have meal prep and make-ahead meals. What's the difference? Okay, meal prep means that you're prepping for the meal, but you're not necessarily cooking it. You can meal prep and put the ingredients together, put them in the refrigerator, or you can freeze them for a later time. Now, I've done a little bit of meal prep here today, but not a lot. Also, you have make-ahead meals. Now, what's the difference between make-ahead meals and meal prep? Basically, make-ahead meals mean that the entire meal has already been done, so it's made ahead of time. You have two choices with that. You can either make your meals ahead of time and put them in the refrigerator and leave them there for just a few days, or you can take that meal and put it in the freezer to eat later on. Now, why would we want to do meal prep or make-ahead meals? Well, there are quite a few reasons. For one, you may be very busy and don't have time. You may be a busy mom that have kids and you're working and you really don't have time when you get home at 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening to properly do the meal. Well, this is where make-ahead meals come in. So what you can do is make some things ahead of time, put them in the refrigerator. Your loved ones or some of your kids which are older, I wouldn't recommend this for very young kids unless you have no-cook items. So what we're going to be doing today are two different meals here. We're going to be doing one that is a vegan meal. It's called veggie spaghetti. And then the second recipe we'll be doing will be Cajun chicken pasta. One is vegan, one is not. Now we're going to do the vegan meal first simply because we don't want to put any meat ingredients in our vegan dish. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I have done some prep. So meal prep comes in a lot of different ways. You can do a little bit of prep or you can do a lot of prep. Now I've done quite a bit here. So for our veggie spaghetti, and I'm not even using a recipe for the veggie spaghetti, but let me show you what I did to get ready for this dish. First of all, I meal prep my noodles. Those are fettuccine noodles. I simply cooked those ahead of time and put them in the refrigerator a day or so ago. I also chopped up my bell peppers. We have orange bell pepper here. And excuse me, and I also chopped up my onions. Now the bell pepper and onions were both in the freezer. You can do that at any time, keep it frozen, and just pull them out when you're ready. I see a lot of times people let bell pepper and onions go bad in the refrigerator. You don't have to do that. Simply take those onions and bell peppers, chop them up or slice them up, depending on what you're going to use them for. If you're going to, you can dice them or you can slice them. Really, the chicken pasta will be better sliced, but I diced them, so we'll use them as dice. Also, I meal prepped everything else here. I chopped up my zucchini, my eggplant, my carrots, my mushrooms. This is a jalapeno, and I also have some frozen vegetables here as well. And I have a can of tomatoes. So the veggie spaghetti is just as the name says. It's a spaghetti with no meat, only veggies, and it is delicious. And the good thing about this is you can do it any kind of way you like. You can add whatever vegetables you want in your veggie spaghetti. It's really about using what you have in your refrigerator or freezer. If you have some things left over that's raw, you can chop them up, put them in the freezer, and bring them out. If you only have just a little bit, that's fine. Just save that for a meal like this. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and add some oil to my skillet. Okay. And the way I put this together is I generally use the ingredients that's going to take the longest to cook first. So what's going to take the longest to cook in here will be the carrots and probably my onions and my bell pepper. I also have the tomatoes, and I like for my tomatoes to get pretty well done and kind of break down. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to put my carrots in first. And you can dice these carrots up small or bigger. It totally depends on how you want it, okay? And so the next thing I want to add to this will be my tomatoes. And I'm going to go ahead and put those in because I like for the tomatoes to really break down, and it's not so much a whole tomato, but more so tomato sauce, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. And it will take a little while to do this, so let's talk about meal prep a little bit more. When you think about meal prep, you think about being able to help somebody to eat who may not be able to cook for themselves. For example, if you have a senior or elder person in your family and they're not able to cook anymore for themselves, or they may be able to cook but not completely, you can meal prep for them either way we talked about, by putting it in the refrigerator or by putting it in the freezer. But a lot of times when people are sick, they need some help with food. And we find lately that there are not as many places where we can go and get good, wholesome food. So why not meal prep? You can also hire somebody to do this, but it is so simple to do it yourself. Now, when you're meal prepping, you need to have the proper containers. And we have some containers here. So let's talk about what type of containers you're going to use. Well, if you're going to be freezing something, you want to make sure you use freezer-grade containers. Okay? Why? Well, because the freezer-grade containers will allow the food to stay fresh the longer you keep it in the freezer. So if you're going to freeze that meal for a while, you want to make sure that it's not getting any freezer burns or anything like that on there, okay? So let me show you what we have. Now, these are our refrigerator containers. These are not really designed to go in the freezer. You have to buy freezer-grade containers, and you can find those in the grocery store, and it's simply going to say freezer containers or freezer bags, either one. You can put them in some bags like this. As long as they say freezer bags, that's fine as well. So this is a 2-compartment, and we're going to use these for the refrigerator. And I have 3 here. If I can get these open, I have 3 here. And you see, these are pretty good size, all right? And then we also have some here that has a 3-compartment. And if you look at it, this is a bit bigger than this 2-compartment. So if you have more food, you can use the 3-compartment. Very nice size here. And the good thing about these is that if you look here, you have these dividers, and the dividers keep the food from going into each other. So if you turn it to the side, you'll see that your food will stay in the container that you put it in. All right? And it doesn't have to be anything fancy like that. You can use pretty much anything to meal prep to put your food in. Okay? So we have our carrots and our tomatoes here. They're cooking quite nicely. All right. Now, I also have some frozen vegetables here that I purchased. It's called Tinja blend, I believe it is. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But this has a lot of what we're going to put in here, which is the peas, the carrots, the corn, and the bell pepper and onions. So it really is complete. It's not very large pieces, so if you want larger pieces, you will have to chop them up yourself. But this is an alternative to doing it yourself if you're really busy. I prefer to chop everything myself, but we can use some of this in here if we want to. Now, what makes a really, really good veggie spaghetti is a lot of different vegetables. If you're vegan, which I'm not, but sometimes I cook like one. I do have quite a few vegan friends, and it's really funny because I laugh about it a lot because they always talk about the foods, the meat not touching the vegetables. And so I have a lot of respect for that. So that's why I said earlier, we'll do the vegan dish first and then come back and do our meat dish. Okay? So we got the tomatoes going here with the carrots. And we're just going to let that cook down for a little while. You can hear it, and it smells delicious. Also, I wanted to show you the salsa. Now, if you didn't want to use the canned tomatoes, you could use canned salsa like this. It has a lot of the same ingredients, and it's also very spicy already. So you could use this in either dish instead of the tomatoes, okay? So just think about that. And this is leftover salsa. This is some we use for salsa and chips, but we had some left over, so why not go ahead and use it in a dish before it goes bad, okay? All right. So the next ingredient we're going to put in here, I believe, will be our mushrooms. And these are mushrooms that I sliced up myself. You could buy mushrooms pre-sliced. I prefer to slice them myself. I think they're fresher that way. So let's go ahead and add our mushrooms. Okay. And you want to let those cook down some. All right. Now, what other vegetables could we use in this dish? You could use just about anything you like. I like asparagus in here, cauliflower, broccoli, anything you can think of, any kind of vegetable you like, you can add this to this dish. All right. And some people ask, how done does the vegetables have to be? That's totally up to you. If you want your veggies very, very well done, that's fine. Go ahead and continue to cook it. But if you like your veggies a little bit on the raw side, don't cook them that long. I prefer them to be cooked pretty well. So I'm going to take my time and really let the tomatoes cook down. And basically what the tomatoes would do is create a sauce for you. You will have some chunks of tomatoes, but you'll also have a nice sauce as the tomatoes cook down. Now, if you didn't want to add the tomatoes, you could also use tomato paste, which I really like because the tomato paste has a depth of flavor. You could also use tomato juice. You could use fresh tomatoes. So you have a lot of options here. Or if you don't like the tomatoes, you could leave the tomatoes out totally. I prefer to have the tomatoes in because I think it creates a really, really nice sauce. Okay? Now, how long will these last in the refrigerator? Well, I would say if we make this today, we want to keep this in the refrigerator for maybe about 3 to 4 days. And in 3 to 4 days, it'll still be fresh. And the colder your refrigerator is, the better off it is, okay? So 3 to 4 days in the refrigerator, but if we cook this and put this in the freezer, we have 3 to 4 months, okay? So you have a long time. Again, these are great meals for people who are disabled. I was disabled for a while with a broken ankle. I couldn't cook for myself. It was just too painful. So I had friends that would bring over food for me. They would make something at home and bring it to me. And I much prefer that than them going out and trying to buy something at a restaurant that's not going to be fresh and it's not going to be as good. So think about this, especially during the holidays. You have people who may not be able to cook for themselves. Consider making a meal for them, okay? So we're going to take a little break and we'll be right back with the rest of this dish, okay?
How long have we been married, dear?
For 76 years.
He was kind and generous to me before we married, and he was kind and generous to me all these years that we have been married. We had been looking at a lot of different houses in different places around that area, and when we came by this house, it was green, and I love green. I'm Irish. And so I said, oh, there's our house. I know it. We decided on Meals on Wheels because at my age, I was getting to the point where I couldn't do all the things that I had been able to do. We're the Spans. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
Okay, so we're back. We got everything going here, so let's finish up our dish. Our peppers are looking good. Our tomatoes, onion, and mushrooms are looking delicious now. So we want to add the rest of our ingredients. The next thing we will be adding will be the eggplant. And if you don't like eggplant, you can leave the eggplant out. I like it, and I think it adds a lot to the dish. And the type of eggplant I'm using, and if you look at it, these eggplants are pretty small. This is called the Ichiban eggplant. It's very long and slender as opposed to the fat eggplant we normally see. And I like the Ichiban, and they're easy to grow in the garden here too. So we've got our eggplant in there. Okay. And next we're going to be adding our zucchini. Now I have everything in medallions, but if you want to cut this up smaller, you can do that. It's a little bit more work, but you can do that if you want to. All right. Now, if you find that your dish is a little dry, you can add some water to this. If you're vegan, you wouldn't want to add any chicken broth, but you could add chicken broth to this. But if you're vegan, you could add a vegetable broth as well. So if you want to add something to it, go ahead and do that. And you can wait until the end and see how much moisture you have in here. But the zucchini will have a little moisture in them. So we'll give you a little bit of moisture in this dish, okay? And just take your time, no need to rush, because it's going to take a while to get all your vegetables cooked down. All right. Also have some jalapeno peppers that I've diced up, and I'm just going to add a few of those to this dish, and I'm going to save the rest of them for our next dish, okay? Now, thinking about some other things you could do for make-ahead meals. If you have children and your kids are taking a lunch to school, you could also do some make-ahead meals for a kid's lunch. One of my favorite things to do for a make-ahead meal for kids would be burritos. You can do a breakfast burrito or you can do a lunch burrito. That's really easy to do. Now, if you're concerned about sending food to school with your kids and whether or not it's going to last or if it's going to go bad because it's going to be too warm, think about adding something to the child's lunchbox that will keep it cold. The easiest thing to do to add something to that would be to add a frozen water bottle, and the child can drink the water at lunchtime. It'll start to unthaw. You can also freeze yogurt. The yogurt can be eaten frozen, or it can unthaw. So you have ways of keeping it cold, or you can just use the ice packs that are designed for lunch pails and put that in there. But you have ways to keep it cool. So think about doing the breakfast burrito or a lunch burrito. And if you do a breakfast burrito, it's really simple to do. You're basically just taking your burrito wrap, some eggs, and whatever else you want to put in there. It could be ham, it could be sausage. If you're vegan, it could be eggs, bell peppers, and onion. And you want to roll that up first in aluminum foil, or you can roll it up in wax paper, then aluminum foil. That way you can put it directly into the microwave. Or if you don't want to microwave it, as I said, just make sure it stays cold until lunchtime. And most kids these days are eating lunch much earlier than we used to. Some kids in elementary school are starting to eat lunch as early as 10:30, so it definitely won't be unthawed if you freeze the ice by 10:30, okay? So I'm going to keep this going here. And everything is starting to cook down. And you want to look at your eggplant and your zucchini because they can go limp pretty fast. And I'm looking at my eggplant and it's already cooked down pretty well. My zucchini still needs a little cooking to go. And as you can see, I'm kind of stir frying. Basically what I'm doing is just tossing everything, stir frying. And if you need to add a little bit more oil, you can. I use olive oil here. So if you need more oil, you can. The reason I didn't have to use a lot of oil is because I have a non-stick skillet. This is a wonderful skillet. I love it. Nothing sticks to it. So I can use very little oil in this one. When you look at meal prep for a family, if you have teenagers, you can definitely do some meal prep for your teenagers. Have something ready for them to go. Let them know exactly what they'll need to do. You want to take your meal prep, especially if it's uncooked. You want to have some directions on there. Tell them if it's something that has to be baked, put on there exactly how long the baking time is, or if you're cooking it, put on there how long the cooking time is, and have really good instructions for them so they know what to do. You may want to even go over it beforehand to let them know what is to be expected, all right? So this is cooking down. I'm going to go ahead and add in my pasta. And I have basically fettuccine pasta. You can use any type of pasta you like. It could be bow tie pasta, whatever suits your fancy. Go ahead and use that. If you don't like a big noodle like this, you can use linguine. This is called veggie spaghetti, so you can use a regular spaghetti noodle. I prefer a flatter noodle, but it's totally up to you which one you use. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of these in. All right. Now, I haven't added any seasoning thus far. So, at this point, I'm going to add in some seasoning. I don't think I put any garlic in either. So, I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic in. And I'm being pretty generous on the garlic. I also have some cilantro, so I'm going to add some cilantro in here as well. And I'm going to save the rest of it for my next dish. And once again, I've meal prepped everything. Everything is ready to go. All I'm doing is just assembling. All right. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder, even though I added some garlic. And I'm going to add Italian seasoning as well. And we've added no salt thus far. So we can add a lot of seasonings, and the more seasonings you add, the less salt you'll have to add at the end. And I'm going to add some Cajun, well, this is Creole seasoning, and this does have salt in it. So this would be the first salt addition that we put in here. It has some heat in it, but it also has some salt in there. So we'll get some good seasoning from that, okay? I'm also going to add some of the bell pepper that we got out of the freezer. And I like my bell peppers to stay a little crunchy, so that's why I added them near the end. And I'm also going to add just a little bit of onions. Make a space here in the middle so that they actually cook a little bit. All right. Then I'm going to add just a little bit more oil here in the middle. All right, so this is pretty much the end of our dish here. As I said, you can cook this as long as you need to cook it. If you feel as though some of your ingredients are not quite done enough, continue to cook it. And if you want to add some broth or just water to it, you can do that as well. Now, if you look at this dish, this is probably enough for at least, if you're eating this as an entree, this is probably enough for at least 3 meals, maybe 4 or 5, okay? So we're going to leave this here, and when we come back, we'll work on our second dish, and we'll get everything put together and prepped up, all right? Thank you so much.
We just finished dinner, and it was time for homework. He hates homework.
It makes no sense.
I don't know how he finds anything in his backpack.
I can't find my backpack.
Finally, we found his assignment. He rushed through it. I wonder if he even learned anything.
I wasn't gonna get it right, so I just wanted to get back to playing my video game. At least I'm good at that.
I couldn't even read his handwriting.
Holding the pencil makes my hand hurt.
I know he's bright.
Why is it so hard for me?
He's
I'm
just
trying
gotta
as
try a
hard
little
as
harder.
I can.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. That's why there's Understood.org, a free online resource for the parents of the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues. Here you'll get personalized recommendations, practical tips, daily access to experts, and more. Go from misunderstanding to Understood.org.
Hello and welcome back. We're ready to go with our second dish. We're going to be making Cajun chicken pasta. Very similar to the first dish we made, except it will have some chicken in here. So we've taken the liberty to go ahead and saute down the bell peppers, onions, and garlic. So that's already going. And so the next thing we have to add will be just a little bit of our seasonings here. This is our cilantro. I'm going to add a little bit of cilantro here. Well, actually, it's quite a bit of cilantro, but I like it. All right. So toss that a little bit again. I can smell the cilantro. It smells so good. I've started to use a lot more cilantro and a lot less parsley because the cilantro has a lot of more depth of flavor to it. So I love using cilantro, and it's very inexpensive too. About 50 cents to 75 cents a bunch. You can't beat that. All right, so next we have our pasta. So we're going to go ahead and add our pasta in here. And again, it's the fettuccine noodles. All right. That's a lot of noodles, but that will go a long way, and you can feed a lot of people with that. Again, we're talking about meal prep, so we're looking at having several meals from this. All right. Easy enough, right? And the last thing we're going to add will be our chicken. Now, the chicken has been cooked. I got chicken breast, and I cooked it off, seasoned it very well, so your chicken will have a lot of seasoning in it. So that's going to add a lot more flavor to it than if I had to put chicken in here and then had to season the chicken in here. So let's go ahead and add all of this chicken. And this is probably about 4 or 5 chicken breasts. And you can add as much chicken as you like, okay? And to really make it Cajun, I like to add some paprika to it. Paprika will also give it that reddish color. And it's not hot, so it's not going to add a lot of heat to it. And I'm also going to add in my salsa. I'm going to put this right here in the middle. And let that cook down a little bit. And the salsa has a little bit of heat in it, so the salsa will add a little flavor as well. So all you have to do at this point is just mix everything up, and you're ready to go. Everything in here is already cooked. Nothing in here has to be cooked that long because your salsa is cooked, your bell pepper can be slightly cooked as well as your onions, and this is all to it. Now, once you add your chicken, you don't want to cook this very long because you'll overcook your chicken, especially when you're using chicken breast. But if you want to save money, you can use boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and they are a lot more forgiving. And if you overcook them, they won't be dried out as if you overcook chicken breast. So that's all to it. We have our meal prepped up. We have our containers here. And all we have to do is take this, put it in the containers. I would label the containers to see so you know when you made it and how long it can stay in the refrigerator. And then you can decide whether you're going to refrigerate these, freeze them, or you're going to do both. Maybe you want to put half in the refrigerator now and then put some in the freezer for later. So this is your meal prep. You have 2 meals here, and you can add other things to them if you like. So I hope you've enjoyed our show, and I hope you do some meal prepping for someone you love. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.